People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Craig Anderson.
And I'm Lou Quinto.
Lou, guess what we're going to do today?
Let me see. The Great Migration. No, it's not the Great Migration. What? Oh, the Great Resignation, Part 3.
Great Resignation,
Can
Part
we call
3.
these parts?
Parts, installments, chapters.
Chapters. I like chapters are better because each one is different. Yes.
Chapter 3. Chapter 1, we talked a bit about the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. We introduced it in Chapter 1.
We introduced it in Chapter 1. Chapter 2, we brought you Maury Schwartz, where we talked about what to be thinking about if you are on the employee side of the Great Resignation.
Right.
Today, we are going to interview Jon Rosser of Platinum Recruiting to really get the recruiter and corporate side of what the Great Resignation looks like. So we want to dig into things about how companies should be positioning themselves, what people are thinking about when they're being recruited, what they're looking for. This is going to be a great interview with Jon. He is great at what he does over at Platinum Recruiting. So we are very excited to jump into this interview with Jon on the employer and recruiter perspective on the Great Resignation.
Jon, thank you so much for joining Lou and I today on Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. We've been doing a series on the Great Resignation, and Lou and I have talked a bit about it in general. We've had a career coach on to talk about it from kind of the person searching for a job during the Great Resignation. And now we're excited to talk to you about what's going on from the recruiting side of this whole Great Resignation. Hopefully you agree with us that the Great Resignation is occurring.
It is. Yeah, it's the market is crazy. It's crazier than we've seen it in a long time. And so the Great Resignation is, I think it's real. It depends, it applies to different disciplines and fields. Hospitality and retail, for example, may experience it differently than let's say the professional sector, but it's definitely alive and well.
Oh, it's just such a crazy thing. Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, no, Jon, explain crazy to me. I mean, when you say things are going crazy from a recruiting standpoint, what's that mean?
It's mainly a good thing. There's a lot of jobs available. There's a lot of opportunities available for people. So, but when the pendulum swings kind of to the extremes, for example, right now, a lot of people that are searching will get multiple job offers. They'll resign and get a counter offer from that employer to stay. So those kind of things create a little bit of a chaos in the process in terms of thinking you have someone, then you don't, or, competing offers that drive, prices up, which can be good, but also frustrating. So, it just puts a lot of chaos in the process.
So would we term this, I guess, almost like a real estate? You have a buyer's and seller's market. Would this be an employees market as opposed to a corporate market?
Yeah, definitely a candidates market right now. They've the leverage has definitely swung that way. It won't stay there forever, but for now, it's as far that direction as we've seen it in a long time.
How soon or how long ago did this start? I mean, we have a name for it now. And so because there's a name for it, obviously there's either a lot of force going in that way or it's been around a while. And for many people, the Great Resignation, they've never heard of it yet. So how long has this been around?
I think the extreme part of it is probably most of this year. And it really it's because things flipped really quick. At the beginning of the pandemic, no one was moving jobs, or rarely, because if they had a secure job, they were staying in it.
Right. They're scared to death. Yeah. I mean, finances, everything, just stay where you are. For anybody that we heard that, actually got a new job during COVID, you were like, are you serious? You're looking for a job during COVID? No, but exactly. I have a neighbor who in June. After, I mean, it started in March, and in June he started looking, and within 3 weeks he's in IT and found a better IT position that created or gave him the flexibility that he wanted, and also the financial aspect too. But he did it 2 months into COVID, and we all thought he was either drinking too much because of COVID or he was just naturally crazy. So
right. Well, it's and that created a ton of pent up demand. So a lot of people stayed in jobs longer than they would have.
Right.
So eventually, like a slingshot, eventually when the confidence came back and people realized, oh, my sector's going to be okay, or my field's going to be okay, or my company's going to be okay, things really bounced back. This almost like a slingshot. It was quiet for a while, and then all of a sudden, it just like the floodgates open.
Right. Now that's interesting, and I want to look at it, even though you're dealing primarily with the people looking for jobs. I want to take the other side of the coin here, and I want to take a look at it from the company or the employer perspective, if I could. And they know this is going on. And what's the old, I won't even say it's an adage, but the old concept that when you lose a person, you don't just lose a person, but you lose about $100,000 worth of information, relationships that they've had, their input on the team. And so what do you find? Because you're working both sides of the field here. So you can go to the dark side, and then you can come back to the light side, depending on who you're working with. But what are companies trying to do to maybe not stop this talent drain, but what are they doing to keep their employees?
Right. That's a great question, because as hard as it is to find people, I mean, it's you want to get better at finding people, but start by keeping who you have or the ones you want.
Right.
And so that's a great place to focus. And some of them seem obvious, more flexible environment where people can work remotely occasionally, or some kind of hybrid situation.
Okay, now you just used the term occasionally. And see, I'm starting to hear that, where you've got, again, we're talking about a pendulum in extreme situations. You've got some companies that are going, Craig, we were talking about Goldman Sachs 6 months ago, and it was like, if you can go into New York City and go to dinner, you can come to work. And we're getting rid of remote. And then at the other end, you're getting companies that are saying, you know what, this is working. Let's continue to do it. And now really let's dive into and find out if it's going to be an every other day thing. It can be just a Tuesday and a Thursday, but you're in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday. What are you finding with that flexibility?
I think a little bit of a moving target for a lot of companies, still figuring out what works best.
Right.
What we are hearing from candidates is oftentimes it's not necessarily I want to be remote all the time, although that certainly exists. But to have some say-so in the matter. Hey, trust that I'm going to be there when I need to be there. If I'm home, I'm still getting my work done, and have a little bit of say-so in kind of how that looks. So if anything, we're hearing that a decent amount. Not, hey, I want to work remote every single day, but there needs to be some flexibility there, and I want some input on how that looks.
Okay. And what are you hearing from the corporate side to that request?
Yeah, the larger employers are, a little hesitant and maybe not capable of being completely everyone just do what you want. And I think that's reasonable that they can't do that. So, that's for them, it's a moving target in terms of finding out what works best for most people, or maybe it is flexible, but you need to have a agreed upon structure to something like, hey, if Tuesday, Thursdays at home works best for you, okay, but let's try to agree with that so people leaders can plan around that and who's going to be in, who's not. So the larger companies can oftentimes not be quite as flexible. The smaller companies have a little bit of an advantage there.
Okay, interesting. If we didn't have COVID, would we be in this position of the Great Resignation right now?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what we're experiencing now is a culmination of many things that maybe were slowly happening.
Right.
For example, my parents' generation you go to an employer, you stay there for 30 years and you retire. That's been changing for a long time and changing jobs every couple of years. So, I mean, I think there's things that have been happening.
Right.
But COVID made it happen lightning speed. It just brought things to a head to where I think it happened a lot faster than anything else would have happened.
Right. Okay, good.
So we talked about the inflexibility, or being, not sure how much you're willing to let people work from home. So that's probably hurting the companies. What are some other ways companies are shooting themselves in the foot during this recruiting process, Jon?
I think, salaries have gone up quite a bit. So employers that are not being flexible on that is an issue. And then I would say, lack of empathy in terms of wanting to listen to the candidate or the employee in terms of what they need and want. A lot of data and study is showing, especially in the younger generations, that it's not all about money. Now, if you can get a 50% increase to go somewhere else, sure, that's going to make a difference. But a lot of them are also interested in more time off and time to volunteer, time to travel, placing a lot more value on those kinds of things that aren't just monetary.
Yeah. Are things like Glassdoor? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that lazy generation, Craig, that you always complain about.
Me. Jon, how big a thing are like Glassdoor and some of those things? Are people, when you're reaching out to candidates, are they looking at employees' Glassdoor? If I'm a company, should I be worried a lot about what that says?
People do look at it for sure. It can be an obstacle for us occasionally if we've got a client that's known for maybe a little bit of a rough environment. So candidates do go look. I think it's a mixed bag in terms of the value put on that. Sometimes some people assume that only the folks with bad experiences are going to be the ones that leave comments, and kind of take it with a grain of salt. But people definitely look. I think employers are now optimizing or prioritizing those reviews, or trying to an effort to get better reviews from people that have had positive experiences to influence that. So it's definitely a factor.
Okay, I'm gonna step in for the listener or viewer here. What are we talking about, Glassdoor?
Glassdoor is a website where people can review can give a grade basically and leave comments about their experience with an employer.
Really?
Wow. I don't know if I assume it can be anonymous. I don't know if people leave names or not, but so you can go on anonymously and leave a review about their experience with an employer. So it's a decent place to check out for someone that may be considering a new job.
Okay. See,
don't look at the one for Q&A, because I have raked you over the coals. Glassdoor.
Obviously. Yeah. Well, I mean, I had not heard of that. So I'm sitting here as you all are talking, and you all are talking very intimate with it. And I'm thinking, okay, what about somebody they're just picturing a Glassdoor on a building right now. That's what I was thinking initially. So
it's okay, Boomer.
Okay, so our listeners can't see me flipping you off right now. I want to go back to the original question that I asked. What are companies doing to stop the drain that is occurring during this Great Resignation?
They are providing flexibility. The good ones are listening more to understand what their existing people actually want and need. That's probably there's employers that kind of take our way or the highway type mentality, which is
right
in this market is not a great approach. So the ones that are listening and trying to understand what the motivations of their teams.
I was going to say, and what are they hearing when they're listening? I guess that's where I wanted to come back to that question again. What are they hearing that they're implementing? Yeah, flexibility, understand that. I was used to remote for 23 years during COVID, as Craig likes to say, but now, we're getting to the point where we're seeing the end of the tunnel. So flexibility is there, but what are employers hearing from their employees that are helping them to try to keep them?
I would say balance is another factor. It's during COVID, there were certain industries that are hotter than others. So we're getting overworked. While working remote, the lines were blended between when you didn't leave the house and go to the office. and vice versa. So the lines were blurred a little bit. So balance is a factor we hear from people that are kind of burnt out,
Right.
working more than they were, and maybe underappreciated for that.
Okay. All right. Terrific. What, let me ask this question. Are you seeing a focus, age-wise, I'll say first, on people that are calling you and saying, Jon, I want to give you my resume. I got to find a place, or look at industries, or their specific industries, age groups, male, female, head of household. Are you seeing any trends in that regard? That's what I'm asking. Well, took a long way to get there, but I found it.
It's a great question. I think, as I think about it, I mean, I feel like it's across the board. I mean, I think, the younger generation tends to be more focused. The impact is across the board, but younger generation, for example, is a little more interested in the remote or hybrid situations, whereas let's say the more seasoned candidates are maybe a little less interested or concerned about it, or maybe they like going to the office and want to still be able to do that. So that's maybe one difference. I think young parents or middle-aged parents that have kids, that was a common or popular, the frustrations they were experiencing trying to homeschool, trying to do their job, do all those kind of things was stressful for a lot of parents. So that was,
yeah, those are the parents that are bringing cupcakes and filet mignons to school every day with their kids to give them to the teacher because they appreciate the job that the teacher does all day that they didn't appreciate before. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are, I guess, maybe a few different kind of subgroups that come to mind.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Because
wow.
that, I mean, with all the reading I've done and everything, I've seen IT and healthcare, top industries. Those are people that you're getting a lot of resignation in those fields, and then I didn't know how it broke down generationally. I've heard that more millennials toward the younger side of millennial to the mid side, maybe not to the top side of the millennials, which would be around 41 42 years old now, I think, is the oldest quote unquote millennial in that generation. So I was just wondering if there were pockets that corporations should start paying attention to. Okay, good. Greg?
Hey, Jon, I want to go back to
1 in 42. Is that the top end of the millennial?
The millennial. Yeah, because when Pete Buttigieg, when he ran for president, he was 39, and he was at the top end of millennials. So that was 2 years ago. So 41 would probably be it. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm fact check on that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we have our fact check crew here that will. Let me talk to Bob in fact checking and see if he can look that up for me.
Jon, going back to something you said before, that people are getting multiple job offers at the same time. When they're looking at that 2, 3, 4 job offers, what's making one hop off the page to them to say, oh yes, this is the one I really want?
Like any job change, it's a variety of factors, but I would say flexibility oftentimes comes before money. They'll take a little less, oftentimes take a little less money for the schedule they want, whatever that may be. And then experience during the interview process. I mean, I think that's a lot of it. There's companies that that have maybe a too lengthy of a process and a lot of hurdles to jump through, and by the end of it, just in this kind of market, when there's options to do different things, that candidates maybe get a little frustrated with some of those processes, so maybe a little turned off by the time they even get to the offer stage. I would say flexibility, then money, and then maybe one that's been more important lately is having a connection and or passion to what the employer does is maybe more important now than I would have maybe thought 5 years ago, let's say.
Right. Yeah. And that's something we've heard a lot, is there's this whole desire to have an alignment with the mission of the company or what they're trying to do. And so does that give very strongly mission-driven companies a big advantage right now in the hiring market?
I think it does some of them. But companies, it's just a matter of finding the people that are aligned to that mission or to that product or to that category. So it gives some employers a big leg up. It hurts some companies, like old school traditional manufacturing, for example, is a little less, not quite as sexy, let's say, as the tech companies. And so that can create an additional challenge for those employers.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Okay. Lou?
Yeah, our crackjack crew in fact checking Bob just let me know that 1980 is the very first year of millennials, so they would be 41 going on 42. So Quinto was correct. I want you to write that down, Anderson. So Bob, I appreciate that. Thank you for getting me that information. So, okay.
I was born in 79. So I'm
Oh no, you're an Xer. You're an Xer. Yeah. That's that generation that's lost between boomers and millennials. Yeah. I mean, you don't hear. Yeah. Craig's an Xer too. Yeah.
I am.
So I happen to be a boomer. So, but I'm on the tail end of the boomers. I was 1960. And 64 is when the Gen Xers came in. So by the time I was 4 years old, I matured during the Gen X era. But technically, yes, I am a boomer. So, okay. So I have no idea why we're going off on that, but yes, millennials are 41 years old. Okay. Yeah. We've got that good. All right. So let me ask this question again. Corporations are seeing this drain. And I would see that as a significant thing that companies really need to pay attention to. So in addition to the mission, you and Craig just talked about the mission and, talking about the product and the company. I also am reading about particularly the younger generations, the emerging leaders, the next generation of leaders are also concerned with the company's, I'll call it their allegiance or alliance or care for things like the environment, those social things that I don't want to be a part of a company that doesn't have a very good DEI program, diversity, equity and inclusion. Yes, I almost said equality. We did a podcast, and the entire time I kept saying equality. So or equity, right? No, what did I use?
Equality is wrong.
Equality instead of equity. Yeah, but is that also part of things that companies are looking at? It's that community orientation, that world orientation that might be turning some employees off because my company doesn't stand or support those things.
Yeah, that's definitely true, and that's been a change, and that's maybe not as COVID related as it is, the elections related.
Right.
But I would say, in the last 3 or 4 years, that's been a much more important factor. When we approach someone about a new opportunity, that's to many or to some, that's one of the questions they're asking us is, what do they believe in? What are their diversity initiatives?
Right.
How diverse is their leadership team? So that's the last 3 or 4 years. That's definitely gained a lot of importance.
Yeah, and I'm sure that would kill a lot of potential employers when they go to the annual report and they see a bunch of old white guys sitting on the board of directors, and then you're trying to tell them, no, really, they're very diverse.
Right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm looking at people here.
What the website looks like, but it's. And so employers are kind of I think they kind of have felt the pain on that a little bit, and which forces their hand a little bit in terms of trying to become more diverse. So hopefully that's a good thing.
So basically what you're saying then, Jon, is that companies need to look at just a lot more how much I'm paying or what benefits am I giving out. They really need to look at the culture of the company. They need to look at what kind of investment that the company is making in individuals when it comes to their development, whether it be for leadership or technical training, things like that. Also cultural issues. So I see companies have a lot of work to do.
They do. The employers had the advantage for a long time. And I think over the I don't know when it started, when the transition started, but slowly for a while now, employees have felt like they don't owe as much to employers. And that created more job change. And that's in the last year or so, that's just really increased a ton. So it's, and employers really need to pay attention to a lot of that, invest time and resources into figuring out what their people want and figuring out who they want to be, really, because a lot of it starts with how you find people and finding the right people for your company. So finding out who you are as a company and who you want to be, and then building that into your recruiting message and your marketing message, so that you're getting the right people for your company that are more likely to enjoy it and want to stay.
Right. Yeah. If I were the owner of a company right now, I wouldn't say I would be scared, but I would be concerned because my mission, my vision needs to change. It needs to be updated to 2022. We can't live on a mission that we created back in 2000 even, because so much has changed. And because I hear, and I read the stories, pick up the Wall Street Journal, read about the Great Resignation, watch NPR, Bloomberg, all of those things. And you hear, I want to work for a company that I believe cares for me.
Right.
And so that old business model of, hey, I'm giving you a paycheck, just do what you're supposed to do. And there's your health benefits, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. If I need you for overtime, you have to be able to, volunteer for overtime. You can only have X number of sick days. You have to ask if I can go on vacation. And the business models need to change. And I don't think it's going to happen overnight. Do you agree?
I do agree. And you mentioned a couple of things there that I've thought of, and it's hard to maybe quantify, but years ago, everything became tied together to where people needed employers. Your wages, your 401k, your insurance and benefits. And so all that.
That's still, that's one of my biggest complaints with, poor people looking is the health insurance. We're the only country in the world where someone has to depend on their job to give them reasonable health insurance rates, or otherwise you get folks like me or Craig who have to go out and seek, insurance independently. And, I'm paying $650 a month with a $10,000 deductible as a fairly healthy, white male. And
right.
So I can't imagine that. So, yeah,
I think the younger generation is becoming less and less likely to put up with that, and also they're also seeing other opportunities. This is a little bit more of a extreme opinion, but you see like what happened in the stock market earlier this year with AMC and GameStop. You see crypto. There's a increasing popularity in small, like sweaty startups, they call them, in terms of starting an HVAC business or a painting business, things that won't make you a billionaire but can make you a great living.
Yeah, consistent living. Yeah.
So there's been a variety of trends and fads that seem, I think is giving a unique confidence to maybe the younger generation that they don't need the employers as much as the employers want them to believe or need to.
Right. Which I'm going to ask another question. You probably don't have the answer to it, but with all of these changes going on, where is the importance or focus of advanced degrees today when you're doing recruiting? Is experience overshadowing that, or is, people, it must have an MBA? Yeah, no, you don't. I've met a lot of people with MBAs that it's like, wow, you got a job that you must have an MBA, but you're no smarter than me.
Right. It'll be interesting to see where this heads, because, 20, 30 years ago, and I've been recruiting for 15 years. So I know that before then that well, but MBAs have, in my opinion, have lost the
luster
in the jobs we fill.
Right.
Accounting, finance, HR. Can it help? Sure. But it's not required nearly as much as it used to be.
No.
So MBAs, for example, it seems that experience is getting more and more valuable and interesting than the MBA, for example. And what, over the next 20 years, it's going to be interesting to see if the same thing happens to bachelor degrees.
Yeah.
Undergrad.
Yeah.
And you already see it some in tech where I don't care if you went to school or not. If you can code, come on.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, particularly if we're looking at college costs here in the United States. I mean, if they continue to go up, and if I'm a millennial and I'm still paying off my $250,000 loan, and when my child is just starting college, do you think I'm going to push them to have that burden for, 20 plus years of their life as well? So yeah, that's why I asked that question. Is I'm wondering from a recruiting standpoint how much that advanced degree is holding water. So
Yeah,
sorry, Craig, we got into your area a little bit since you used to handle lending to those students who are now strapped and burdened with that big albatross around their neck.
So let's just have a quick fact check on that, Lou, since we're fact checking today. The only people who owe $250,000 are lawyers and doctors. The average student loan debt, or the median student loan debt, is still under $30,000. But thank you for the sensationalizing the job of the student loan debt issue.
Yeah, and doctors and lawyers are the biggest ones that don't repay also. So
also not true, but yes, fine. Jon, so we talk a lot about in the Great Resignation, all these people are unhappy and they're looking for a job, or they're looking for something. And those are probably great people for you to contact. But what about the people who are very happy in their job? They pick up the phone and it's Jon. Should I take that call, and how should I handle that call? Because that's what we are always told. Oh, you always take the call.
Yep. I would agree with you. You always take that call, but now more than ever, I think you definitely take the call. And we work with a lot of, most people we work with are more passive in their search, just open to that phone call, after we establish sort of a relationship or whatnot. So in this market, when there's the raises and the opportunities, especially the raises and the power that the candidates have right now in the process, it's probably I don't know that there's ever been a better time to at least listen and see how another situation compares to what you have.
Great. Awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah, because there's not a ton of for professional level, let's say accounting, IT, HR. I mean, there's not a ton of just super active people searching. It's more people that are just, you got to go to them and go find them. And then maybe they're open ears and open to hearing about something. But it's not like the best people at what they do aren't necessarily looking at job boards at night. They're busy with getting their work done, families, whatnot.
Right. Let me ask this question too before we wrap up, but I think this is an important one because we've been talking about those jobs that are full-time jobs. How much of all of this change that we've gone through are companies taking their entire workforce, and is contract work expanding where I can bring Lou on and keep him for 6 months to a year, but I don't have to, because I've got a project that I need to be done. And that was a position that we used to have, but it gives me as a company more flexibility with my employee payroll that I can bring in a contractor as opposed to bringing on someone full-time that I could be stuck with for 10 years. I don't mean stuck with, but, right, be on the payroll for 10 years. Do you see there is an expansion in your world on companies saying this is an employee I want, but I want a contract type employee?
I think, interestingly enough, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see a lot more employees thinking about the contract route and being more of a freelance operator that may be able to do work for more than one company.
Right.
Maybe they don't need health insurance, maybe their spouse does, but not be tied to an employer. But hey, I'm really good at this. I can do this for 5 companies and work and probably earn more hourly on a combined basis. For employers, I still think it's a little challenging in this market when most people that want a job have a job.
Right.
Finding a good contractor can be difficult unless it's someone that does that on a full-time, unless that's their job is contracting. Right. But finding someone in between jobs that's still good enough to do what you want to do is really hard right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting.
But I think it'll be fascinating to see if whether it's recruiters or other fields where people are like, you know what, I think I can do this remote and do this for a handful of companies. And so I think there may be a fascinating shift to more of that. in the next 5 to 10 years. But so we'll see how that plays out.
Jon, that's what I've been doing for 35 years. So
it's like you knew the magic all along.
Yeah,
it works out. It works out extremely well.
And then then it's easy. You want to take a month off, you take a month off.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a lot of, there's freedom, because you don't, in order to bust the monthly, I call it bail that I have to make each month. I don't need to work 20 days a month. I can work 7 or 8 days a month. And so, people say, when, are you looking forward to retirement? I'm looking at them going, for the last 35 years, I've been semi-retired because I have a lot of flexibility. But when I'm working, I'm working. Now, if I want to work 20 hours or 20 days a month, I could. Yeah. But, why? Life is too short. So
and people are going to catch on to what you all along.
Only a select people inside my circle know that.
Yeah, but I think it highlights it's yet another maybe area where that rigid employee-employer relationship is just kind of fracturing a little bit, and it's creating, people are seeing different ways to do things versus how it's always been done.
Sure. Yeah. But no, I mean, you like I said, there's the positives and the negatives. The negatives are you got to watch the cash flow, and you can't get caught behind that, because if you do, then you're eating, cat food for the next month.
On that note,
Craig, what is your key takeaway from our interview with Jon when it comes to the Great Resignation and how companies are dealing with it?
Well, Jon, one of the hidden secrets of Q&A and breakthrough leadership is Lou and I have a lot of opinions, and we only do these interviews to validate that we're right. So what I can say I was happy to learn is we've really been talking about the importance of companies getting more empathy around how they're treating employees and the way they're treating employees. And what I'm hearing here today is that is so important for employers to be successful in this time of recruitment, in this time of turnover, which may be, I hate to use this phrase because I'm so tired of it, the new normal for a while. It may just be, this is the world we're moving to. So that was really good to hear. So thank you for that key takeaway for me. Lou, what have you got?
My key takeaway is, now I know that the true average payback of college tuition that a person has upon graduation is $30,000. So next time I hear someone say mine's $75,000, $100,000, and they're not a doctor and a lawyer, I'll say you're a liar. So, all right. No, my key takeaway, Jon, based upon everything you're saying, is that COVID slapped us in the face. And during COVID, we've seen a decade, or if not more, of change. And that even if COVID goes away, companies have to continue with that change at that same pace that they have done during the COVID times. It's not, okay, let's study this. They need to be very agile in their management of their companies, and the business model needs to change. The millennials are the proverbial square peg that we're trying to put in the round hole, and your job will only become more difficult if more companies don't adjust and take that square peg and put it into the hole that it needs to go into, as opposed to trying to make it fit the old business model, the business model of 2000s. I'm not even going to go past 2000, although I could, Craig, but I won't. But I truly believe that companies need to embrace change with the same pace that they did during COVID in order to stop this migration. But more importantly, or resignation, I should say, but more importantly, hold on to their employees. That's my key takeaway. Jon, what's your key takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is that I'm closer to a millennial than I thought. I think I knew that I wasn't, but I didn't. You were right there. You were right there. Mom didn't go into labor when she did. You would have been a millennial. I didn't know I was so close. That is, although off topic, my biggest takeaway from today, and I don't know how to feel about it.
It's now you understand those stray thoughts to wear pajamas to work and not want to work very hard. I kid.
I am wearing shorts right now, so that may be true.
Oh, as are we all.
Yeah. Well, don't throw me into that group. I've got a pair of khakis on. I maintain no. So anyway, Jon, we appreciate you being with us. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they best get in touch with you to learn more about what you do and perhaps opportunities that you may have out there that they would be a good fit, which would help you out too in your job?
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a lot of fun. Well, we can meet where Craig and I met, which is Twitter. My handle is @RosserJobs. So I'm fairly active there. LinkedIn, if you just search my name, you should be able to find my profile. Our firm's website is just platinumjobs.com.
Okay.
And then I suppose email would just be john@platinumjobs.com. If that's
And you're Jon without the H, right? You're Jon.
exactly. Yep.
Okay, good.
So, but Twitter is the more informal, fun, interactive place, I would say, versus LinkedIn. But you can find me in both places.
Okay,
Great.
fantastic.
Well, Jon, thank you so much for being on today. This was really helpful, and it was a great part of our series on the Great Resignation. So we look forward to getting to learn more about this, and for our viewers to learn more too. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care,
Okay.
Jon.
Take care, guys.
Yep. Well, Craig, everything that you said about Jon coming into the podcast definitely came to fruition. He did a good job of talking about a lot of the things that you and I have talked about offline about what companies need to do to be able to prevent this employee drain of the Great Resignation. And I go back to my key takeaway on the whole thing too, is that businesses need to change their business model, particularly when it comes to how they're dealing and working with their employees, because it's the proverbial, square peg in a round hole with the next generation of leaders coming up. And that is the generation that is leading this Great Resignation.
Oh yeah, the pendulum has definitely swung over to the employee side of the equation in recruiting right now. So it's a great time to be an employee who is on this job search.
It definitely is. So if you've enjoyed this episode of Q&A on Breakthrough Leaderships with our third chapter on the Great Resignation, please like, share, subscribe to our podcast. We come out every Thursday, and we are available on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook for those of you that want to watch us. In addition, we are available to all of you who just want to listen to us on all of your major podcast platforms. So please go and leave a rating for our podcast. Leave us a note. Give us a comment. That's how people find out about us. And we hope that the material, the information that we're giving you on a weekly basis is very helpful to you and hopefully to a lot of people that you work with. So until next time, keep your hands washed, keep your distance. I'm Lou Quinto.
And when you have a minute, make sure you get vaccinated too. I'm Craig Anderson.